single-family house and a barn, which has since been raised. So what we're proposing is a single-family house on this lot. For reference, the lines up here, we've got the small dash line, which is the 25-foot no disturb, the red one, right here. And then the outer one is the 100-foot buffer zone, and then the local 150-foot buffer zone. The green line is the edge of the wetland, and this bluish-purple line up here is the edge of the riverfront area. The inner outer, let's see, this is the 100-foot riverfront zone. And then the 200-foot outer riverfront zone is this purple line here. So you can see a portion of the lot, which actually extends up this way a little more. This is the back of the lot right here. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to this laptop here. So you can see here's the back of the lot. All of this area in here was maintained as lawn area. Let me see if I can get rid of those. There we go. So the edge of lawn followed this line over here, which is the proposed erosion control line. And then the lawn actually followed the stone wall all the way up to the back. Historically, it's been maintained as lawn area. In the current application, we're going to do the same thing, maintaining it as lawn area. The prior house was slightly larger than what we're proposing now. In fact, the roof area, footprint area of the house is about 650 square feet smaller than what was proposed before. Additionally, the prior application required only 300 square feet of roof area to be discharged into the infiltration system, along with the driveway runoff. What I'm proposing is a slightly larger infiltration system so that we don't have to isolate portions of the roof. We're going to collect all of the roof runoff and discharge it into the infiltration system. Driveway runoff needs to be collected so that it doesn't go into Lexington Street, which is a state highway. So there's a trench drain proposed across the frontage, front of the driveway, behind the sidewalk. The trench drain will discharge into a little sediment trap with a detail of the sediment trap over here. Okay. All right, so this is a sediment trap. It's basically a catch basin. It's a little smaller in diameter, but it has a 4-foot sump to collect the sediment. From there, after that, it would go into the infiltration chambers that also collect the roof runoff. So if I can pan up, this is the edge of the riverfront area up in the far top of the screen. The riverfront and the wetlands were flagged by Oxbow Associates. This is the same delineation that was in the prior application, which expired this past March. So we're here to just basically do what was proposed in the prior application, with the exception of one detail. At the limit of work along here, as you follow the mouse, there we go. As we follow that along here, we're proposing a integrated block retaining wall. I know the commission, I'm not sure who went out there, I think last Tuesday, was it? And did a site walk. You probably saw the block wall on the adjacent lot, which is the subject of the next hearing, maybe. So what we'd like to do is just extend that wall along the back of what we're proposing as a yard area, and then follow along the limit of work, which is actually the limit of what used to be lawn area. We're going to just raise the grade and reloam it, seed it, and call it lawn area again. And then we'll put a 6-foot tall white vinyl fence on top of the wall. mostly for safety and privacy. So the fence is shown on the plan as well. So what we're here for is to basically just get an order of conditions to continue the work on this lot, build the smaller house, and allow for the fence and the retaining wall. Other than that, the proposal is pretty similar to what was there before. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions from the commission.
Mark, before I turn it over to the commission, just make sure I have this, that the differences between the one that was approved and the one we're looking at now is we got a smaller house
Yes,
and we now have a wall and fence.
a wall and a fence, yes.
Is there anything else that is different? Is the infiltration system in a different location? I see a deck. I don't see any stairs leading down to the ground. So I'm just curious as to whether there are other minor changes that the commission should be aware of.
Well, I think one of the minor changes is that the driveway is on the left side of the house now as opposed to the right. The right side of the house, the driveway comes out and it would require a telephone pole to be relocated, which isn't usually the easiest thing in the world to get accomplished. As for the deck, yeah, there are going to be some stairs probably going off to the right at the end of the deck up in here. I forgot to put those on the plan, but there'll be probably 3 or 4 steps going down from the deck onto the lawn. Underneath the deck will just be crushed stone, so any runoff from the deck will just go down into the ground. And I do show this feature here is just a bulkhead for basement access. As far as other things, just flipping the house, shrinking the house, enlarging the infiltration system. I don't recall where the other one was proposed. I think it's in a similar location. But other than that, that's all we're proposing that's different. The limit of work is not changing at all from what was previously approved.
Terrific, thank you. So I now turn it over to commissioners. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick, on the proposed trench drain, was that previously proposed as well?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
And just a quick question on that. Will that catch any water from Lexington Street?
No.
At all? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Mark, so you're saying that there's not going to be any alteration to the riverfront? Is that what you're...
Nothing that hasn't already been altered.
What about the wall and the fill? I mean, I know you're going to be putting, lawn where lawn was, but it's going to be about 2 to 5 feet higher than it previously was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's not considered an alteration in your mind?
In my mind, no, because it was previously altered. So it was maintained as lawn area, and we're going to reuse it as lawn area. So in my mind, it's not considered an alteration. So.
I would disagree with that. I think that the regulations do have a redevelopment portion for riverfront, but when you get into that, it talks about degraded areas. A lawn is not considered degraded, even though it may be like, well, that was altered from its natural state, but that's not what, the regs don't give you that. Like, well, if you're taking something that was lawn and you're doing something there, then that was already altered. It doesn't account for that. It would if it were a structure there. But where it isn't, I don't see how you meet the threshold because it appears that you're over the 5,000 square feet of allowable alteration in riverfront.
Well, yeah, I mean, the 5,000 would apply to both lots combined, correct? Because these lots were created after 1996.
They were, So,
Be limited to 10% of the total riverfront area on site, which is significantly less than 5,000 square feet.
I would have to actually research that, because I don't know the answer to that question now that the lots are subdivided and that's been completed. I don't know if you look at, I mean, it is 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront on the lot, whichever is greater.
Right.
But you're also over the threshold of 10%. But you're saying if we looked at the two together, the total alteration of riverfront is less than 10% of the total riverfront on both lots? Is that what you're saying?
No. There's, we've got, let's see, riverfront. 8,190 on lot 1. 9,040 on lot 2, so that comes to
1,040?
9,000.
Oh, sorry.
So that would give us 904 square feet on one lot and 819 on another.
So it's not, so the 5,000 is going to be the,
Yeah, so if you looked at it as the two lots combined having a total of 17,000 and change square feet, I guess the question is, are we allowed the 5,000 square feet in aggregate for both lots?
I don't know the answer to that. I will look at that.
Okay. I'm not sure what the difference is between this and the prior approval, because there was some grading involved in the riverfront area under the prior approval as well.
I can't speak for that because that's, like, this is a new filing, so I know there was a previously approved filing, but unfortunately it expired and it wasn't extended before the expiration, so this is a new hearing and
Yeah,
looking
I
at it with new
understand
eyes.
that. I was just-
I mean, it may be that, something was missed. I don't know. I'd have to dig, but I'm more concerned with getting it right
Yeah.
here. What's
I
in
did
front
reach
of us.
out to Oxbow Associates, and apparently Brian Butler has retired, and I don't know what happened to the company. Scott
Okay.
Myers is one of the guys I usually work with there. I haven't heard back from him either.
Okay. So I'll,
Yes.
I'll do some digging on that question of whether or not it's 5,000 on each lot, because I don't know the answer. But the other question I have while I'm thinking of it is, I did ask you, and I know that you gave me something on the preliminary FEMA floodplain. Wondering if you can add that to the plan, because it was hard for me to try to figure out from what you sent where it actually falls on the plan. So if that's something you can add on to the plan, that would be helpful.
I can try and do that. It would require more survey work because that area is defined as a zone AE, which is defined by elevation. So the line that's shown graphically isn't necessarily isn't as accurate as if I were to go out there and do a survey and determine the elevation. I think the elevation is 72 for the floodplain, which seems to make sense. It's all out beyond the back of the lot. There's nothing on the lot that's below the floodplain elevation.
On that thought, just, I guess I just need to have some type of clarification. If that area were to flood because of the river, the water is gonna be, the wall is gonna protect Lot 1 and Lot 2. And what would have run onto Lot 1 and 2 is no longer capable of going onto those two lots because you have the wall. Where is that water gonna go? And is it gonna do damage to people downstream?
Well, the floodplain elevation is at 72, so in the 100-year flood, the water elevation would only reach up to elevation 72. The entire lot, as it sits, is all above 72, so it never would reach the wall anyway.
I'm sorry, are we talking about two different datums? Because the grades on the plan are much lower than 72.
Yeah, I've got 58,
Oh,
60,
all right.
62, 56, 54.
Sorry, I misspoke. Elevation 52.
Okay,
I knew it ended in a 2.
that's a big difference. Thank you.
So it's 52, not 72? Thank you.
So we do have an elevation of 54 in the back, so that's getting close. You know, we're talking only 2 feet different. And with the way things have been around here with the weather, and we get lots of rain, we get no rain, my concern is that wall going to affect any property downstream.
And I guess my answer to that is no, because there is an existing flood elevation out there based on the study that was done in 2010, I believe.
That's right.
They're redoing that study right now, and there's a preliminary map that Teresa forwarded to me of the new analysis that shows it's the same elevation, only they have it slightly jogged in and out. But I went by the analysis using the elevation defined on the new preliminary study, which I'm sure takes into consideration any changes in weather or whatever.
Because I'm sure the elevations haven't changed from this plan to the one that expired, but we didn't have a wall blocking water coming towards the lot, and that was a concern of mine, that that wall is gonna block water that could eventually get onto Lot 1 or Lot 2 and be displaced somewhere else. And I certainly don't wanna approve of anything that's going to do any disservice to any of the landowners downstream.
No, I can appreciate that, and I wouldn't want to propose anything that would have any adverse impacts to anybody downstream or next door. So given the elevation of the floodplain, you know, the bottom of the wall is 2 feet above the floodplain elevation, so I don't foresee any impacts to surrounding properties due to water blockages.
Jerry, anything else?
Well, yeah, I have a couple. So do you know how much fill was actually brought in over there?
I don't.
Okay. Because I think yardage-wise, I mean, a building permit is necessary for something like that.
Typically, a building permit is required for any wall over 4 feet in height.
I'm just talking about the fill now, not the wall.
Oh,
Was
just
there-
for the fill?
Yeah,
I would have to check the ordinance to see. Some towns and cities have earth removal permits that are required. That's typically for large-scale projects where you're excavating a lot of earth or bringing a lot of earth onto a site, but work that's incidental to a single-family house or a residential development typically is outside the scope of an earth removal permit.
but the fill that was brought in is bringing that backyard up to the grades you need, right? Most of it. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff there.
Yeah, there is, when I was out there, there is a lot of fill out there, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know how much was brought in, though.
okay. And then you, as you were speaking about the wall, has that gotten a building permit? And is it does it have to be structurally designed and approved by, say, you, an engineer?
It would have to be, for anything over 4 feet that requires a building permit, typically the building inspector would require a structural engineer design. That was constructed before I was on the project, so I would have to check with the applicant to see whether or not a building permit was pulled.
Okay,
He's usually pretty good about doing stuff like that, and he's usually errs on the side of caution, so I would imagine it is, but I can't confirm that at this point.
okay. I'd appreciate it if you could confirm that. And then the other thing that I had was the infiltration system is now, let me see so previously it was at the bottom of the stone was at elevation 5260.60,
Okay?
and now it's at elevation 55. So I'm wondering why the change, or why the change was necessary? Is it because it's now sitting on top of fill that's there or proposed to be there? Because it shouldn't be, if that's the case.
Well, I didn't see a need to put it so far into the ground. At elevation 52.6, I would be concerned with groundwater.
Well, but that was the proposed elevation previously.
Right, and
Okay,
I
so
looked
what-
at some of the test holes from the prior application, and then also looking at the finished grade, which is in the back, it looks like elevation 62.
But that's after the,
That's the finished grade, so
With the-
when you take the height of the chambers and the stone and the cover required, I felt it would be better to get the system up.
but what's it going to be now sitting on? Fill that was brought in? Because that previous elevation was, it was 2 feet above, the bottom was 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater, right? I believe it was.
I would assume so, I didn't go into
Right.
the prior analysis.
I'm just wondering again, what this now is sitting on top of. Is it sitting on top of fill, or is it, or
It would
ground?
be sitting on top
existing
of
ground.
good granular fill that I would have to inspect and approve. It's not going to be something that would prohibit infiltration. I would want it to mimic the underlying soil.
Correct.
So typically, what they could do there is when they excavate for the cellar hole, they could use that as fill beneath where the system going, because it also requires that before you put in your trenches, you have to remove all the unsuitable material, like the old topsoil and subsoil that was there. That has to be removed, and if they need to bring the grade up, they have to use good solid or good granular fill that's going to promote infiltration,
Okay,
and then crushed stone. So sometimes they'll just put that much more crushed stone in as well.
okay. So, and you're going to obviously oversee that as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you figure out exactly how much riverfront will be disturbed? Because if we're thinking it is a disturbance or an alteration, can you get that
I will
number?
have to come up with that number and make sure we're below the applicable thresholds given Teresa's definition or interpretation of the definition, so I will have to revisit that.
Okay. And there's just one other thing I was looking at, as it relates to the amount of alteration that there can be, and it has to do with, it's 1048, 1058, I'm sorry. And it goes to, it's 1058 4D, and then 1, and it talks about 1058 4C 2.B.VI, which then gets into that language is any lot shown on a definitive subdivision plan approved under Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81K to 81GG, provided there is a recorded deed restriction limiting the total alteration. So I doubt that that's in place now, right?
No, that's not in place.
Okay.
There was no deed restriction on that.
I mean, that seems like would help you if that were in place.
Yeah, I think, I've seen that typically in larger developments where you have a lot of riverfront area and you're doing some alteration, and what it does is, it's similar to the water quality certification when you do filling a wetland. You have to put in a deed restriction so that people in the future can't come in and say, okay, I want to alter up to 5,000 square feet of wetland.
Right. Right.
So you already reached your cap on the first development, so you can't do it again.
No, right, yep, okay.
Can I just circle back to our discussion with the preliminary floodplain? I understand what you're saying about it would involve a survey to add it to the plan, but could you add another note to the plan? You do have a note on the plan about the FEMA flood insurance rate map with the effective date of June 4th, 2010. Just add like another note about the preliminary map?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the commission have any questions or comments? Hearing none, this is a public hearing. Is anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission one last time for any last comments or questions.
Thank you.
Seeing how the commission is looking for some additional information, is it your request that we continue the public hearing? Our next public hearing is the 21st of November.
Yes, please.
Move to continue the public hearing to our next meeting at 6:30 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, next on the agenda is Frederick Chaldea. Locus is 183 Lexington Street, Lot 2. We're gonna have to delay the opening. We do not have a DEP number.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Again, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering. I have here a request for a waiver of regulation, section 6 of the local regulations, which requires the commission to obtain or prohibits the commission from opening a public hearing without a DEP file number. I'd like to waive that and allow that, and I have an explanation as to why.
Well, I would certainly listen to the why, but I would certainly recommend that we not open. We do not have a DEP number. If we start this procedure, it's gonna become a regular occurrence for people to ask for the waiver, and I feel very uncomfortable opening up a public meeting without a DEP number, and that's my personal feeling.
May I?
You may.
Okay. This application was actually submitted on October 8th. At that time, I've also submitted by certified mail the fees to the Boston P.O. Box for DEP. That certified mail got lost and ended up in Nashua, New Hampshire. On October 23rd, it was issued, or just saying that it was en route to the next facility, whatever that means. So last week, I believe it was Wednesday, the 29th, actually, we made another mailing for filing fees because this was what was holding up the DEP file number issuance. I'd also like to note that I mailed the copies of the submittal to the Northeast Regional Office on the 8th. They didn't actually log them in until the 21st. So that was almost 2 weeks later, which seems a little unreasonable to me. So I mailed the other ones last Wednesday. They got, mailed some separate envelopes this time by certified mail. They got one of them on Saturday. I believe it's lot 1 that they received, since that's the one they issued the file number for. I don't know what happened to the other one. It's still in limbo. This past Monday, they received the original mailing that was sent out on October 8th. So it's almost a month later. So finally, someone picked it up in Nashua, brought it down. They received those on Monday. That mailing had both checks in it with the transmittal forms. I don't know why the DEP has not issued a file number when that's all they were waiting for was the check for Lot 2. So it's been a month since we filed this thing, and we still don't have a DEP file number, and we're coming into December shortly by the time we get through the next hearing. So I would like to be able to open the public hearing, understanding that a DEP file number is necessary for closing the public hearing and issuing an order of conditions. The DEP does allow a filing or a public hearing to open without a file number. They just don't let you close the public hearing, obviously, without a file number. So my request is that we continue to open the public hearing, hear the presentation, and continue it to the next meeting, and hopefully get a DEP file number, which could be issued as early as tomorrow, but waiting an extra 2 weeks just for one day, or potentially one day, seems a bit of a hardship on my client. He's done everything he can to try and get this thing moving along, but the mail service, I'm sure, was bogged down with mail-in ballots, and stuff happens. So that's my story.
Well, I can certainly open it up for discussion, but again, I've been here, I forget, it's either 37 or 38 years, and I've never had a waiver for opening without. So again, my recommendation is we not open, but it's open for discussion.
So I would suggest that, certainly from the comments that I made on Lot 1, I would have very similar things for Lot 2. So whatever I asked you to address on Lot 1, you probably would need to address on Lot 2. I don't know if there's commission members who have things beyond what was discussed on Lot 1, but I'm not sure that it's beneficial, frankly, to your client to open it tonight, both because it's definitely going to need to continue or go to the next meeting anyway, and we are down 2 commission members tonight, so that would also affect who could possibly vote in the future. So I don't know that, unless there's something really specific that you would look for some guidance from the commission on this lot that doesn't pertain to the other one.
I don't know if I can even ask for guidance from the commission without opening the public hearing.
Right.
I mean, I'm very limited on what I can say if there's no public hearing, because that is a violation of the open meeting law, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I would agree with Teresa that probably be looking for very similar things for, Lot 2 that we did in Lot 1. I'm not going to say exactly, but probably similar to what we're looking for in Lot 1. And again, it's, if we have all that at the next meeting, hopefully we can close, the next meeting.
Well, I
mean-
would just offer that Lot 2 is the one that he already has the house up and built. He would like to, try and get the driveway paved, get the drainage system in, but if we're working towards December, it's going to be very difficult to get that work done. So I guess that's where I am with that.
Any other feelings?
It's tough. I'm not sure
So-
that
It does seem a little bit of a hardship to not open.
But that hardship didn't come from us.
I know.
That hardship did not come from us. And like I said, I've been here 37, 38 years, and I've never had a waiver to open without. And I think if we start that process, it's gonna get out that, oh, you don't have a number, but they'll waiver it, and it becomes something that's gonna happen more regularly. And I personally don't want that can of worms opened.
Well,
I'm just one.
I think from my perspective, my client hasn't experienced a hardship on his fault either. It's all a function of DEP and the mailing system. I mean, DEP is on, I don't know what their revised schedule is, but the last time I talked to one of the people there, they only go into the office every other week.
Terrible.
So that might be why that the first these didn't get logged in for 2 weeks after they were received. But when you consider that DEP's regulations require a public hearing to be opened after 21 days, and yet here we are 30 days later, and they haven't issued a file number.
I would respectfully say DEP's regulations also require that they issue a file number I think it says immediately, or at least upon receipt of a complete application.
Right.
And I think their position is that it's not complete if they don't have a
Oh,
filing.
I can
fee.
agree with that, yeah.
So, I think that there's a reason for why the commission put that in the regulations about not opening the hearing. One issue that comes into play, and again, from the commission's standpoint, it's not complete if DEP doesn't have a file number, because they're supposed to issue a file number when it's a complete filing. But you've already said that you would agree to a continuance, but what happens in a case where somebody comes in and they file something, they don't have a file number, commission opens the hearing, they don't consent to a continuance, and then the commission
They have to
has
deny
to
the-
close the hearing, but they can't deny it because they can't issue anything, because they can't issue an order of conditions without a file number. They can't even issue a denial without a file number. So then it's an impossible situation because of the way that the regs are written and because of
It's true.
DEP's actions.
I guess that goes on to how does a hearing get continued? I mean, sure, we could ask for a continuance, but the commission, in my
Commission
experience.
cannot, if you say, we want the hearing closed, the commission will close the hearing. Unless it's still within the 21-day period. The commission can continue a hearing within the initial 21 days of receipt of a full filing without the consent of the applicant, but after that, then the applicant has to consent. So the only thing the commission could do is close the hearing, and the reason that applicants consent, even if they don't necessarily wish to consent, is because they know that the commission could deny it. But if there's no file number, then there's this weird limbo that's an unanswered problem.
Yeah, I can understand that too, but typically, the DEP is fairly responsive in issuing file numbers. I mean, ever since COVID, they've had their issues with getting things done in a timely manner, but that ship has sailed, and I don't understand why, we couldn't get a file number when they have the checks. So, anyway, we don't need to beat a dead horse. I guess we'll continue this. Do you want my waiver request, since it does have a request for continuance on the bottom of it?
Well, do we need to make a motion?
Yep.
Take his request.
Yeah. So I would move that we deny the request to open the public hearing without a DEP file number in this case.
Second?
All in favor of denying?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any for? Any abstentions? So we will not open, but you have at least a little bit of guidance for that lot.
Okay.
And hopefully, we'll get the number in time for the 21st.
Okay. All right, very good.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mark.
very much for your time.
All right, next on the agenda is Kevin Miller, 4 McDevitt Drive, notice of intent, DP number 348-862. It's a house addition, garage, deck, and porch, and this has been continued from April 25, May 9th of 2024. If there's someone here to speak on that.
What do I do with mine?
Seeing none, I will open up the meeting for discussion. Looking at the plan, they've reduced the size of the project considerably. Any discussion?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any issues at all with the new proposal.
Yeah, it's been downsized big time, and I think it is acceptable to me.
I didn't have any
Again,
issues.
discussion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, could I offer two things?
Sure can.
One is, I don't think the commission actually voted to delay the hearing
Oh.
for Lot 2. And the other is maybe we could take item, after that's done, take item 4D and then come back to 4C.
Okay, so we need a motion to delay the opening for 183 Lot 2.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. So we'll move to 2D, Joseph Martinetti, 335 Washington and 28 Cedar Street. Notice of intent, DP number 348-0876. Parking lot improvements and play area. Before we begin,
Okay.
Teresa, there was an
I'm sorry.
issue with the fee.
Yes, so.
Has that been corrected?
So the commission has only received part of the fee. I believe it was $600 is what was received, which accounts for the base fee for a commercial project, but does not account for the 50 cents per square foot of floodplain disturbed, or land subject to flooding disturbed.
And the applicant is aware?
Yes.
And
I'm not going to speak on behalf of the applicant. That's,
Good evening, John Paul Martinetti on behalf of 335 Washington Street Holdings LLC. I brought a check with me, but the inquiry kind of was, so we fully redid the site a handful of years ago, and we came before the commission, and the commission waived the fee for some additional stormwater improvements. So we're going back over the same parking lot that we revised just a few years ago. So we wanted to have that conversation with the commission about whether or not, previously the fee was waived as a result of the additional improvements. Is there something else on the site that we could discuss potential additional improvements for versus just the set standard fee?
So I guess my question to the commission, I guess, is if they were disturbing this parking lot and putting a lawn down, would we be considering that disturbing, and would we be charging 50 cents a square foot for that disturbance? I mean, how many times, I guess, if a parking lot is done over 10 times, are we going to charge $6,000 every time that parking lot is disturbed? So I'm in favor of waiving that.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
So in terms of the filing itself, and I know the word is just, I think it's either disturbance or alteration. It might be disturbed. But in terms of actually filling floodplain or changing floodplain, do you know what that square footage is? And can you share that with the commission?
Cubic or linear, I guess?
Square feet, so I would call it area as opposed to volume.
Yeah, because I know previously, I think it was basically the entire site that was repaved and curbed and et cetera, and this is just a portion of it. Effectively, some minor modification, but we're ripping up a good deal of the parking lot to put down a permeable playground.
Yes, so the total square footage of disturbance would be just over 12,400, which came up to the 6,200, I believe was referenced in your email.
Right, I'm asking you though, in terms of filling floodplain. In
Actually-
terms of changing the grades.
Changing the grades, it's probably 3/4 of that, because we're talking a plus or minus inch to 2 inches in some places. So that's how close the grading came to existing conditions, because we need to maintain flood storage. So if you decrease one place, you got to increase another to maintain that, but we're talking an inch to 2 inches. So That's how small. It's probably 3/4 of that 12,000.
You're referring to net fill, though, is what you're asking.
I'm not sure. I'm trying
Because
to, I'm trying to
the
think it
goal was
out.
0 net fill, so basically a
Well,
wash.
yes, except I mean, it gets into and when the hearing actually opens, because I'm not sure this is actually open yet, so I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But just in terms of the fee, if you're, say, you've got an area now, and you're filling in here, so that's altering the floodplain, that you're filling the floodplain. And even if you're digging out here to create some flood storage, those places are where you're changing the grades of floodplain, one way or the other, up or down. So do you have that calculation of what those numbers would be? As opposed to we're taking out pavement and we're going to put in pavement, and it's going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, it's almost the entire 12,400 square feet where we're moving an inch and putting it somewhere else. We're down to that fine line, so I would say it's almost the whole area within the floodplain of the site of our project, so 12,400.
And it's a bit of a challenge for us because it's not a natural floodplain. It's a function of the size of the piping running under Washington Street, which interestingly enough, everyone's working currently to fix. So we'll probably be out of the floodplain altogether in short order.
Teresa, are you referring to maybe the area with the loading docks? One is proposed to be filled and the other one is proposed to be...
I was just asking generally because even, I mean, the way that the fee schedule is worded, I think is a little awkward when it comes to land subject to flooding, because it does just talk about disturbance rather than filling. Because I think the goal is that the commission would want to discourage people from filling land subject to flooding, and therefore charge 50 cents per square foot, so you avoid having people fill land subject to flooding. Don't know that the commission necessarily wants to penalize people for creating additional flood storage. That's not how it's worded in the fee schedule, but it's something that maybe the commission could consider with the request for a waiver for a reduction of that additional fee. But I think at the very least, any areas that are being filled in, even if they're being compensated for somewhere else, there should be some fee for that, I think. But it's up to the commission, it's the commission's fee schedule.
I could, if I may, speak one more point on that. So there is a large area of the proposed development that's being converted from pavement to impervious surface. Other than that, our disturbance area is moving pavement up or down an inch or two. But it is about, I think, 5,400 square feet that's being converted to pervious. So I think you mentioned before converting a lawn, to a lawn from a parking lot.
So what would the number be? 12,000 minus 5,400 or something? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
So it's about 5,200 square feet of pavement to lawn on that side of the building. So you're looking at about 7,200 square feet of floodplain mitigation, I would say, of impervious area.
So that would be a $3,600 fee versus
Right.
whatever,
Yeah, 6,200.
62,
Yeah, it's a reduction.
right?
We'll do whatever it is the commission tells us to do. It just, it was waived previously, so it's like, we're going back to the well, and now we need the waiver, no waiver, so, we'll do whatever you folks want us to do.
Any feelings?
Personally, I feel like where we are, where we had waived it before, and again, I just wonder if we're redoing parking lots and we're not filling, we're keeping the grades, we're just replacing old pavement, how many times are we going to charge an owner for doing that?
I agree.
So,
So do I hear a motion?
I would move that we waive the 50 cents for the disturbance.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yep.
So that's been waived.
Thank
So
you.
if you'd
Thank you.
like to start your presentation?
Please.
We need to open the public hearing?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought I did.
No.
Nope.
No.
I didn't? All right, I'd like to open up Joseph Martinetti, 335 Washington, 28 Cedar Street. Notice of intent, DP number 348-0876, parking lot improvements and play area.
Thank you. My name is Ben Minix with Eagle Brook Engineering, 491 Maple Street in Danvers. Would it be easier for the commission to see this on the screen up
Yes.
there?
Fine,
Okay.
sure.
I'll do my best to get it on there. Yeah, it worked. Very good. Okay, I'll do my best to present off of that.
While you're setting that up, I just have one question. I think on the forms it checked off the box for buffer zone, but there isn't any wetland buffer zone on site, is there?
No, no wetland buffer zone. I guess that was more towards, for DEP to realize it's not within the wetland directly, because with the local, they don't have a
Right,
box.
but it is within land subject to flooding, and that's the resource
Correct,
area that
correct.
triggers the notice of intent filing.
Correct.
And that box was checked, but I think it was 0, which is probably not accurate. So I would say you want to look at those numbers, and we'll get into that a little bit more.
Okay,
when
okay,
you do your
yes.
presentation.
So the property, 335 Washington Street and 28 Cedar Street. 335 is the parcel with the existing building, commercial building. 28 Cedar Street is basically this, just this parking lot and small lawn area here. The site is predominantly impervious area, and we have a parking lot on this side of the building, a loop for traffic going around the building, which can exit on Cedar Street or Washington Street on this side. So I'll jump to what's proposed. The applicant is proposing a daycare center within the existing building. Modifications to the parking lot include some parking spaces reconfiguration. There's an existing loading dock, recessed loading dock here, with a loading bay here. And we're proposing to move that to the other side of the loading bay. So fill this existing loading dock and cut out this loading dock. We're also proposing to move this landscaped island here with curbing, add some speed bumps to control traffic and slow down traffic so kids going in and out of the building are safer. As part of the proposal discussed with the Woburn City Council, children are required to go in and out of the building holding the hands of their adults. We're also proposing a playground in this area, a fenced-in play area. This is all paved area here with some parking spaces. This will be converted to a turf material, which will allow infiltration of stormwater. We're also proposing a sidewalk along the back of the fence line here. There are 2 existing doors from the building. These will be reconstructed essentially, but maintained in their existing location. One is for the play area to access the play area from the daycare. The other one is for this current vacant space, which is still proposed as vacant at this time. So to outline the area within the local floodplain, that is this darker dashed line going around the property here and coming around this side through here. So a portion of the development in here is outside of the jurisdictional area. In here is within the local floodplain. So this darkened dashed line here is our limit of disturbance. The total disturbance within the floodplain is 12,400 square feet. The total existing conditions impervious area within that 12,400 is approximately 11,800, and proposed is 8,200, so we're reducing impervious by about 3,500 square feet in total. Again, that's predominantly this playground area and just some minor changes with the landscaped areas, but this is really the big ticket item here. I'd be happy to open up for questions at this time.
Any questions?
Yeah, so getting into the alteration in the resource area, so you've got to calculate the dock that you're filling and then comparing it with the dock you're creating. That should even off. Is that the plan?
That's correct. This dock, the proposed dock, is actually a little bit bigger. So when we went to City Council, I originally had proposed, let me see if I can go to the next sheet, it might be a little more clear. I had originally proposed to completely cap this catch basin, and we were going to put in a new trench drain here. After we completed the city council permitting, went through all the grading, and like I said before, we're down to an inch here, inch there on flood storage, maintaining existing flood storage. I needed to keep this area a little bit lower, so we're going to keep that catch basin, also add the trench drain. This is a deep sump manhole. But as far as flood storage, it's almost a net fill here, net cut there.
Will there be any chance for a gain there? Like you said, it's going to be a little bigger.
Well,
I know it's a small number maybe, but.
Well, really, when it comes down to flood storage, you're not supposed to account for areas that do not allow for the natural recession of the water. If you were to ignore the drainage system within the property, that flood dock would not allow water to exit. So you wouldn't count that as part of your true storage because it doesn't have somewhere to go in and come out. But if you're looking at the whole thing together, it's a net cut in one, net fill in the other. So we had to fill just a little bit, a few inches here at this proposed entrance for the daycare. But what we're doing is cutting a couple inches along this line where we're removing the pavement for more flood storage. And the majority of the flooding that was witnessed over 10 years ago was in this area, so that's actually a benefit to that majority of flooding. And what I should say about the flooding, that's all due to a bottleneck in the drainage system out on Washington Street over here. The drainage system for this property and the property back here goes through these large culverts under the pavement. and through here. The city is working on a reconfiguration and an upsizing at that bottleneck, which would remove the flooding in this area.
So can you provide cross-sections of the areas being filled in landslide flooding and being compensatory storage created, and give us a chart, like elevation by elevation?
I can, of course. Like I said, it's going to come down to the inch, so you're basically going to see no flood change, but I can produce the tables. No
Thank you.
problem, yes. And that's the only reason it wasn't on here to begin with, is because you're going to see no net on a foot by foot basis, which is how it's calculated. You know, you're not even going to see a change, but I can certainly show it.
And then in the notice of intent, like on the forms, you should have the amount filled and then the amount created.
Okay.
So just maybe update that
Okay.
page as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so you would look at that as if you're filling in one place, but you're cutting in another.
Right, so you need,
Yeah.
right, so you need to show what you're filling and then you show what you're
Right.
creating.
Right. It's the difficult part is when you're talking on a construction scale. That's not even, we're talking such small amounts, it's hard for someone to operate a machine within the tolerance that we're talking about on this plan. It's just that at the end, we have to prove that it's met the requirement and actually, be with them while they're grading it out, so.
Right, they'll need to be surveying to demonstrate that.
Oh, I understand. Yeah,
But for the purpose of approval and going through this process, the commission needs to see the chart so
Okay.
that they can see that comparison.
no problem. What we did before was provided pretty similar site plans to what we have here. And then we were out there grading with them through this whole parking lot to make sure when they pulverized, they, didn't increase the grade. And then after it was paved, we did an as-built survey and compared that to the existing. So that was our intention and what we plan to do for the next, for this project.
I just had a question about modification and repair of 2 existing catch basins. Where are those and what are you doing?
So this existing catch basin here, this is just going to be changed to grade a little bit. So it's really just a frame and
Okay.
cover any additional mortar repairs would be made there. This catch basin here would be converted to a drain manhole. This is right by the proposed entrance, so we're going to essentially cap that because this is going to be raised up. We don't want our low point right by the door.
Right.
We're going to add a catch basin right here, so it's a little bit farther away from the door. That'll still catch the same runoff area in this parking lot area here. Everything to the left flows to the existing catch basins in the parking lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yep.
couple of questions. So thank you for the presentation, appreciate that. In the notice of intent, I didn't see any calculations as far as runoff is concerned, comparing the existing, the existing plan versus what the new plan would be. Is there any change to any of the runoff in that? You are creating more, less impervious surface, so is there a change to that?
So there is approximately, I think it was a net 3,500 square feet of impervious area.
Right.
So everything we generate as far as stormwater calculations is going to show a reduction in peak flow and rate of runoff.
Okay.
We can certainly run through the practice of showing all those calculations for your 1 year, 300-year storm. In our eyes, it was fairly obvious that a reduction in impervious of this scale is meeting the requirements, especially for a redevelopment project.
So I'd like to see that. I usually see that on most of these, most every notice of intent. With something like this, I usually see those calculations.
Yep.
I mean, if that's something that can be done, I'd like to see that.
That's something we can certainly do. I just, we felt with it being a paved parking lot, anything, really, and this scale is definitely an improvement. But it's certainly something we can run through. I just didn't want to overload on paperwork for what we thought was a fairly straightforward
All right.
interpretation.
The other question I have is, do you anticipate any improvement in water quality?
So the water quality, I guess you would say, as far as runoff from the impervious area going to now pervious area, you're going to have an improvement of capture of total suspended solids for anything that does run off from this area. We are adding a deep sump catch basin here, which is an improvement to the existing catch basin structure that's here. We'll also have a little bit of an improvement with the added trench drain in this area, but I wouldn't say major improvements, but there are some as far as conversion of that to that. But again, it's not capturing a large area of the parking lot. But overall, it's an improvement.
Okay. The reason I ask is that you're creating a playground. I would imagine that that's for children to play in. I don't know if people are gonna have dogs in there or whatever it's gonna be, but, you know, I'm concerned with anything that can disturb the type of material that's going down in the playground, any types of pollutants that get into that. So that's where I'm going with that line of questioning.
Yep.
I would be interested in knowing what your feeling is on that as far as your pollution controls in that playground area.
So this playground is a private playground just for the daycare. It is going to have a fence all the way around.
Yeah.
So it's just for the daycare, so there wouldn't be animals going on that for the first point. This catch basin that's in here, we discussed with the city council and city DPW and engineering that we want this catch basin fenced off away from the children, so items can't be thrown into the grate and tampered with that catch basin. As far as runoff along this area, anything that does reach the catch basin on this side, this is turf, so it's gonna collect most of the debris that's within it.
Okay.
And that's a deep sump catch basin as well, so yeah, I believe it is an improvement to water quality.
Okay.
And on the fencing that you just talked about, is that going to be raised up high above the floodplain? Or is that in an area
So
that's-
that is it's a white vinyl fence is what we've proposed. We do have gates. I can get back to you on the elevation of
Because
what
if
that
it's
bit.
in
It'll have an opening
floodplain, then
underneath.
that's going to be
Right.
considered filling.
Right, well, it will
flood
have
storage.
openings underneath, and we may have to look into the openings for the flood
Okay,
storage as well.
thank you. And then I think you're also proposing a couple of new bollards, or are those there already?
So we're proposing a couple bollards here for protection. It's not on the street.
So those also would go into your filling a floodplain?
Okay. Yeah, just a couple here for protection, and some along the front here. So you're looking at like a quarter cubic foot for each of those.
One other question, I didn't see it on the plan, snow storage, was it on the plan?
So there's no change to the proposed snow storage. Existing snow storage is in this area, which can only hold so much. As through previous proposals, any additional snow storage has to be trucked off-site, so that's a running condition
Okay.
with it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else with any questions? This is a public hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. One last
One quick
opportunity.
question,
John?
Mr. Chairman. During construction, when you're taking up the materials for the playground, the existing parking lot, is there going to be any stockpiling of any of that materials, or does that pretty much get trucked right away?
So I'm sure there will be some temporary stockpile. I don't know if I show that directly on this plan. I do have a concrete washout area for when they replace these walk-in areas, but that would be in this area because that is an active commercial parking lot around it. So we wouldn't want to stockpile it anywhere else than this area here. So we'll have to show which is outside of that flood that flood line. But yeah, we'll show some silt fence and straw wattle for
And it's
that.
beyond the flood line, so that's good. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So just one more thing. So I was looking at your stormwater operation and maintenance plan, and I see that you're doing quite a bit of work with lawns, shrubs, trees, grass clippings, and all of that has to be disposed of in a off-site, I would imagine. But my question is, and this is what I'd like to see, is that you have some type of integrated pest management plan for your landscape that specifies what herbicides, pesticides, and any rodenticides are being used on this site. So if you could take a look at that and take that under consideration, I'd appreciate it.
Understood. We'll add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Martignetti, do you know if the previous filing that you had, was that closed out? Do you know if there was a certificate of compliance?
Yeah, I think the previous order of conditions closed out
Okay.
a while back.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty sure we did.
Hearing that we're going to need some additional information, is it your request that we continue the public hearing? The next public hearing is the
21st.
21st of November, which means the deadline would be next Thursday?
Okay.
Or would you like to go to the first meeting in December?
No, that sounds good. We'll get to work.
Okay.
Move to continue the public hearing to our next meeting, November 21st at 6:30 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to 2C. Kevin Miller, Locust's 4 McDevitt Drive, notice of intent 34A-862, addition, garage deck porch. This has been continued from April 25, May 9th of 2014. And as I stated earlier, the project has been reduced considerably. I see there's no one here to speak on it, so any discussion from the commission?
I didn't have any questions.
Just like I said before, I think there's far less impact with the new proposal, so I'd be in favor of this proposal, and
Was that a motion?
I would, well, yeah, it is. But I mean, since no one's here to speak, I don't know if anybody else has any comments, but obviously we'd have to close the public hearing.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I think it's way less, less issues of, changes. So I think it works for me.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I agree. I was actually, I was surprised to see the decrease in the amount of impact
Yep.
based on this. So when I looked at this, so I didn't have any question or really any problem with it.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to close.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
John.
Now, we do have a draft for this. I don't know if you want to act on it tonight.
Yes.
I would
I
suggest.
would
we
encourage
do.
the commission to act on it tonight. I would encourage the commission to act on it tonight.
Okay.
Teresa, anything that's out of the ordinary from most of the conditions?
So it's basically taking the master list of conditions and paring it down a lot since they pared down the project quite a bit.
Yep.
So there aren't any new things in it that haven't been in any other order, but there is definitely a reduction from many other orders just because it is much less impact.
Okay.
I would if people need, some time to read it, I would encourage people to read through it, but I would also encourage the commission to act tonight if possible.
Well, we can do one or two things. We can continue with the agenda and come back to this and have a little bit of time to read, or we can take a little bit of time right now to read it and make a motion on it.
You can do that. I don't mind doing it that way.
I've read it.
I've get through most of it.
Typos? No typos.
I didn't have it. Yep.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move to issue the order of conditions as drafted.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Oh, Moses is here, okay. I don't know, is it like, this was that, or?
Yeah, that was good, yeah.
I don't know if the mouse.
All right, moving on to business items. 5 to 7 Capozzi Circle was on our site walk a couple of weeks ago, but they had us reschedule. We're also going to need to schedule for 20 Fisher Terrace, so we'll do that last. Next is a request for permission to remove trees at 66 South Bedford Road. Jerry, myself, Jim, and Steve did a site walk out there. The owner came out and went pretty quick back in. We were confused about certain trees, so we had him very lightly spray paint the trunks on the ones that he wanted to come down. And both, or not both, but all of us have gone back to look at what he was proposing. And there's 5 trees in total, and the 4 of us agree that the tree that's sticking out over the street can come, and the biggest one that he wants to cut at gutter level, and that one is okay, but the other 3, all 4 of us disagree that they should not come down, they should stay. So, if there's any discussion, anything I got wrong, please let me know, but we will let the homeowner know that 2 of the 5 trees can come down, and the 2 is one that hangs over the street and the tallest one, and he suggested cutting at gutter level. So if the commission is okay with that, that's what we'll do.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Okay.
So I would move that we permit the removal of 2 trees, 2 of 5 proposed at 66 South Bedford Road.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Terrific. Next is the minutes of October 24th, 2024. I don't think I had any notations. Any discussion?
No, they look good.
I'm good with it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the meeting minutes of October 24th, 2024 as drafted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the last thing to do is schedule a site walk for 20 Fisher Terrace. They're looking for a certificate of compliance, and 5 to 7 Capozzi Circle for tree removal. Open to suggestions. Now that we have daylight saving time gone, I guess I would suggest either a Saturday or a Sunday morning.
You know, I'm good Saturday or Sunday morning this week. I mean, they should be relatively quick, too.
Yeah, they should be.
I can do Saturday or Sunday morning. This week,
I could do quick Saturday. I'm meeting Mark down the pond for some post-work on Sunday.
Pauline?
I might be away, so don't plan it on me. If
right, well-
if I'm definitely away on Sunday, I'm potential, could do
How
Saturday morning.
about
I
this
just don't
Saturday,
know.
which is the,
10th? 9th?
9 o'clock or,
Is that good for you?
yeah,
9
it
a.m.?
should be.
9 a.m., too early?
Should
Sure.
double check real quick. I believe it's good.
Capozzi and then Fisher?
What's that?
Capozzi first and then Fisher? They're right in the, pretty much,
I'm just trying to think of location. Where would it be?
they're close to each other.
Right near each other, they're around the
Yeah.
block.
yeah.
So you want to start at Fisher?
The other way
Say
around.
Capozzi.
Or the other way around? Capozzi first?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do 5 to 7 Capozzi at 9 a.m., and then from there go to Fisher.
Hopefully not.
Pauline, if you can make it, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll text you if I can't.
Okay. And Renee, you'll let the other 2 that are absent, know? Thank you.
Send an email tomorrow.
Anybody have any other business?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of things. So last meeting, we talked a little bit about the bridge replacement out at Horn Pond, that one bridge that we had Northeast Metro Tech take a look at. I did email John O'Brien at Northeast Metro Tech. I did get a response back, and they are unable to take on that project,
Okay.
at least for the foreseeable future. I guess that means this school year. He'd let us know if something changed, but right now, that looks like it's not doable.
Okay.
So we're
Well,
back
thank
to
you for
looking at.
doing that.
You're welcome. So it looks like we're back to looking at other options. The second thing is that I did speak with Claire O'Neill at Earthwise Aware. She would like to come in and an informal presentation on the vernal pool work. She'd like to do it on the meeting on December 5th, if that's possible. And she is going to she's going to do the presentation. She's actually going to present all of the certification work that she's just completing now out at the Middlesex Fells, so we can all see what that entails, and also go through an overview of what the whole process is.
Awesome.
So if we can do that on December 5th, she's all ready to go.
Can you provide me with that information? Just
I
send me a
can.
quick email.
I absolutely can.
Thank you.
Yep, welcome. That's all I
Anything
have.
else?
That's it.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Any abstentions? Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.